Welcome to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. We're going to be talking, we're going to be playing my interview from Michael Troughton tonight. Yeah, that's right. Not only known for such things as the new Statesman, but he was also the son of Patrick Troughton. He speaks about his dad a little bit and how he is now playing, after all these years, he's now playing the second Doctor on audio for Big Finish Productions. So we'll talk all about that. But before we get into that, I just want to start with a note of thanks. So many of you last week watched my reading. I didn't have a guest, so I read out for Neurodivergent Celebration Week a piece I wrote about sci-fi and neurodivergency. I've got dyslexia and ADHD, and it's this thing I wrote a little while ago, about a year ago maybe now, where I spoke all about that and how kind of science fiction helped me through some really tough times, feeling alienated from the world. No sci-fi pun intended with alienated, but it's there. And yeah, it got so many views and streams and such like. And when it's just me talking to the camera, which I do rarely, I don't expect necessarily a lot of people to tune in. I know, people come to an interview show for the guests, for the interviews. So when I do something myself and you watch, it means the world to me. So thank you. And also, we're going to get into it in a second, but this interview was recorded at Sci-Fi Weekender, which I'm going to play with Michael Troughton. And so many people as well not only said how much they enjoyed the interviews, which I did, but they also complimented me and my brothers in Trek, James and Elliot, on the Retrek panel where we did When Trek Goes Wrong at the Movies, which was great fun. We had a blast doing it. And just hear lovely feedback about something which we did was really great. And everyone was so kind. We had a full packed audience, which again meant the world to us. So thank you one and all. But on to this week's show. Actually, I will give just one more shout out. Speaking of the Sci-Fi Weekender, there's a wonderful group who isn't connected and affiliated with the Sci-Fi Weekender, but we go every year as well as we go to other events, and it's called the Geek High Council, the High Council of Geeks. Please go on Facebook now and join the group. We have a good time there. We just talk all things geeky. We meet up at events. It's great. You really want to be part of the party, so please do join us there. But on to this week's show. So I mentioned it was filmed at the Sci-Fi Weekender. What I've done is, because, even though I always ask kind permission of the guests to play these interviews, it is recorded at an event. So I want to be respectful of that. So what we've done is I was going to edit down to highlights of my talk with Michael. But what ended up happening was I recorded on my iPad, which is sitting right here. And it didn't update halfway through, about half an hour into the interview, not halfway. We went for about 45 minutes. It cut out about half an hour in. So what I decided to do is, even though I had the audio of the rest, I recorded on my phone. The audio from the iPad's come out really well, and I thought, as opposed to tacking on something afterwards with the rest of the interview, I thought I'd just leave it as this solid chunk of interview. It's a little bit of a funny setup, just because for reasons I don't need to go into, but after the panel before me, I was kind of having to rush around to set up the stage with the stage manager, ready for this interview to go out on time. So I didn't really have time to work out camera angles and stuff. So I just pointed my iPad directly at Michael. So you won't see me in this interview. This is the only time and at the end that you will see me. But during the interview, it's just Michael. And you don't want to see this face when you could be looking at Michael Troughton, the legend that he is. And he was just absolutely wonderful, just so nice and giving. We had such a laugh. He told 2 stories. I don't know, I haven't listened to it back before I've started editing. So he told 2 stories about his bottom. I don't know how many feature in here, but it's going to be luck of the draw. But Michael Troughton, at least I'm pretty sure within this video, talks at least once about his bottom, which is just delightful. It was just great fun. It will make sense in context, but yeah, this one really meant a lot to me. I mean, I've loved meeting the doctors over the years. Meeting someone who had such a personal relationship, obviously, as the son of Patrick Troughton was great. But also, obviously, Michael is a great actor in his own right. So we talked about Blake Seven, we talk about the new Statesman, Doctor Who, all sorts, and it was just a great time. And his wife was absolutely lovely, who I met at the weekend. I believe was his wife, but the person who was with him certainly who I ended up talking to. And so I'd just like to thank Michael. This was just real honor for me, just one I really enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy it too. So without further ado, I'll come back at the end just to say goodnight. But here is my interview from Sci-Fi Weekender number 15, and you can book your tickets now for Sci-Fi Weekender 16 right now. Go to sci-fiweekender.com. And they've already confirmed Christine Chong from Strange New Worlds is going to be there next year. All guests, as always, subject to availability, as is always the way with conventions. But yeah, please book your tickets now, and you can have as great a time as we had right here with Michael Troughton. I like the fact that we're just chatting backstage, and you already seem to have our number. You said, "You do seem to like a drink around here, don't you?"
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed.
So, Michael, thank you very much for being here, first of all.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
So, obviously, you grew up steeped in Doctor Who, with your dad playing the role. And it's such a double-edged sword as an actor when you've got a legacy before you. And you're now playing the Doctor for Big Finish, the second Doctor. Why now?
Nick Briggs phoned me up, I think it must have been about 2 years ago, with this silly idea that he wanted to do the in-between bit, the 6B series, I think everybody calls it. That moment where Dad is spinning round and round, and disappearing into goodness knows where, and the point where the other Doctor falls out of the TARDIS. And there's this period in time that isn't really, it's not actually documented. And we don't actually see a transformation from that Doctor, from Dad to the next. So he thought it'd be a really good idea to investigate, through Big Finish, the idea of writing some really interesting stories that could have happened in between. And he phoned up and said, "How would you feel about playing your dad?" And I said, "Don't be stupid. That's such a silly idea." And I put, he said, "Okay, fair enough." He phoned me back again about a week later and said, "Are you sure?" And I began to think, yeah, I quite like the idea. And I decided that I would do one sort of script and see what the feedback was. Because what I was frightened of was that, the idea that I was playing Dad, and it was a bit of a gimmick, and it wouldn't work. So I did the one script, and the feedback was just so wonderful from the fans that I didn't look back, and I'm really enjoying them. We're just in the middle of recording a third box set. And I've done a few other sort of bits as guests in other box sets. But I'm really enjoying it, I really am. And it's the character that I do is not Dad, because I didn't want to do an imitation, because I'm not John Culshaw. And so I sort of did a mix of Dad's energy and his intonations, but I kept my own voice, which is, I suppose, a little bit like Dad anyway. So, it worked really well. Yeah.
I would love it if you did reveal you were John Culshaw after all these years. It was a long con by him. If anyone has got any questions, please do come up to the mic, but I'll just keep chatting to my
John Culshaw is just absolutely brilliant. And I think he's the nicest man I've ever met. He's such a lovely guy, he really is. We got on like a house on fire. He's wonderful.
Yeah, I think in Big Finish he's playing half of the characters ever to appear in Doctor Who now.
He does anybody you ask. You know, he did some birthday greetings for one of the cast. As a very famous president, I won't mention that could possibly get him again. But he did a wonderful imitation of it. He's genius, absolute genius.
And it's a bit surreal because, you know, as I say, you grew up around the show, and now you're working alongside Wendy and Fraser. Yeah, how's that feel to be doing that after all these years?
It's wonderful because when I did the first one, I went up to Fraser and I said, the last time I saw you properly to talk to, I was in shorts and I was 13 years old on the set of Web of Fear. And he just laughed. We did see each other when I was doing the new Statesman up in Yorkshire and he was doing Emmerdale Farm. We always waved at each other, but we were always going in opposite directions, so we didn't talk. So the first time, 2012 I think it was, we talked at the convention. It was wonderful, yeah. And seeing Wendy again as well. She's fantastic, lovely lady. The first time I went to this convention, it was quite a frightening experience actually, because I'd never gone to one before. I drove up to Newcastle, I think it was, and I arrived at the foyer, got out of the car, struggled through the foyer, and I was greeted by this wonderful, huge, semi-naked, one of those string vests, you know, Glaswegian, who said, "Michael, oh, I loved your father." And you know, I nearly turned around, got back in the car and drove back down the A1 because I was so terrified. But he was covered in tattoos. And the closer I looked, the more I realised that each of the tattoos was a doctor. And he proceeded to show me them all. You know, there's so and so and so and so. And finally, he said, "And I've reserved a special place for your father. He's under my arm." And there was that, sprawled across a hairy armpit. But he was a lovely guy. He was a true fan in the true sense of the word. And we had a drink, and he introduced me sort of to the convention. He was really nice. He introduced me to all sorts of people there. And yeah, that was my initiation.
And I believe that was your first time meeting Peter Capaldi.
Peter Capaldi? No, he's a gentleman as well.
Oh, totally. We'll get on to him in a bit. But while we are speaking about your dad, I saw your wonderful photo book you've got of memories with your dad. So tell us a bit about putting that together.
Yeah, I mean, after the biography that I did, that the family all said you've got to do because, you know, you were very young when Dad left the family, and you have a very unbiased opinion of him. So I did that, and then this wonderful man phoned me up, and he had moved into the flat in London where my dad lived, and he'd been up in the attic. And he found this huge, 3 or 4 cardboard boxes full of the most beautiful photographs that Dad had kept, and scrapbooks, and all interesting stuff like that. So I thought, really, in order to, share it with the fans, we did it in the style of a photo. Thank you. We did it.
Some of the fans there.
Yeah, we did it in the style of a photo album. And yeah, it worked out really well. What was lovely was, on most of the photographs, there were little sort of comments, like me riding a donkey in Saudi Arabia, or me doing this, or, and I put the little comments that were on the back underneath each of the photographs that we had in the book. So it was really, it was a really enjoyable thing to put together.
And on the other sort of, I guess, side of that, let's say, legacy status as an actor, what was important to you when you were starting out as an actor to find your own place in the acting world?
Yeah, I've been asked this a lot actually, and both my brother and I, we didn't really mind being dad's sons. A lot of actors say, oh yes, it's such a terrible weight to bear, you know. We really enjoyed it, and there's no doubt about it, both my brother and I got work when we were younger because of the name Troughton. But in the end, you know, if you're rubbish, you're not going to be used again, are you? And, you know, we weren't rubbish, so we carried on working. Yeah, we got a foot up, but, you know, that was a rite of passage, I think, because, you know, my dad was such a successful, wonderful actor. You know, we both felt it was our rite of passage. In fact, I didn't want to be an actor at all to begin with. I wanted to be a scientist. And when I was about Doctor Who time, really, 12, 13, I had this wonderful sort of laboratory in my bedroom with microscopes and stuff like that. But it all changed when I got a holiday job when I was about 17 at the London Palladium with Tommy Cooper and Arthur Lowe. No, not Arthur Lowe. Who was the one who went, they don't like it up on him? He was in it. It was the time when he was seeing Grandad. Do you remember the? Yeah, some of you may remember it. But I did a backstage job, and I got the bug. Unfortunately, you know, when you get the bug, you can't really not. And so I went into the Arts Theatre in Great Newport Street in London, and learnt my trade really that way for 2 years under this lovely director, Matlock Gibbs, who taught me pretty well everything. But again, both my brother and I were advised by Dad not to go to a drama school. He thought the best way to learn was, you know, like being an apprentice, watching other actors, you know. And so we both started off as acting assistant stage managers, doing a little bit of sound and lighting, and also coming on as, you know, the fourth butler or whatever, you know, with one line. And eventually getting larger parts. So that's the way we learn.
Well, one of the nightmares of what I do here is having to watch loads of hours of classic TV and getting to talk to the people who are in it afterwards. One thing which I've been going back and watching in preparation for today was New Statesman. One of my favourite comedies growing up. I was talking to you about this before. I was really surprised how much, like, I know there's loads of satire and loads of kind of like cunning ways of doing things, but there's some work right on the surface of that, like to use the modern parlance. You've got like a character who's transitioning from male to female, you've got a lesbian couple, and it's all just put in there.
That was the first episode.
Yeah, that's the first episode, literally.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, to be honest, I think Yorkshire Television, who originally decided to go ahead with it, were very brave, because some of the things, you know, the episodes covered were pretty close to the mark, and a lot of people likened it to sort of a real spitting image with real actors, and in a way, I sort of agree with them. We really do lack something like that now, and I look back at thinking this couldn't possibly ever happen. You know, all these things that happen to Rik and the stories that he goes through. But of course, it was a prediction of the future, because so many things that we covered have now come true. You know, there are so many people making money where they shouldn't. I mean, going back to that, it was fantastic. Casting. I mean, I was, you know, to work with Rik Mayall, I just loved the young ones. I thought it was just so fresh and new. And then to be told, you know, I got the part of this upper-class twit. It was a gift, really. And when I arrived the first day at the read-through, there are certain actors you know you're going to be able to work really well with. There's a sort of unwritten empathy you have, you know, an unwritten sort of bond. And Rik and I immediately gelled. which was a relief because it could have been quite hard work, but in the end it was just really enjoyable. And he was wonderful. He's such a professional. A lot of comedians don't like it if they're not getting the laughs in a scene, and they'll basically tell the director what they want and what shot they want. Rik wasn't like that at all, God bless him. He was a real giving actor, and I learned so much off him about comedy. He was a genius and a brilliant actor as well, not just a comedian.
I think you did do some kind of really interesting kind of subtle stuff with Pierce, because it's like on the surface quite a one-dimensional character on purpose. I think you injected kind of quite a bit of empathy to him, and when sometimes like Alan like tripped over himself, like he'd be high status and not even realise it in a scene. Was that something you were kind of constantly trying to kind of keep interesting for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, he originally he was just going to be this character that Rik would say a few words to in the office, and then the story would unfold and we wouldn't see him again. But I think the writers really liked, and the director liked, what I was doing with it, in the sense that, you know, he was a really good foil for Rik, and the scripts got bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, they became more, because Rik was there, they became more and more sadistic as well, which were some of the most wonderful scenes to do. You know, I've had my arse set alight, I've been thrown through the Houses of Parliament window, I've been hit with a full-size salmon, you name it, I've had it done to me. And the writers used to come in, you know, after we rehearsed a bit in the rehearsal studios, and they'd say, Rik, all this hitting of Piers, that wasn't there. That's added another 5 minutes to the episode. You know, we can't have that. And Rik would say, no, it's got to stay. This is brilliant stuff. And so they'd have to cut some other whole scene in order to include the Piers scenes. But yeah, I mean, wonderful decade really of wonderful. You know, we really do need something just to hold governments and hold people in charge to count and be able to laugh at them. And I know that we got that at the moment. We need something on television that does that. The trouble is, I think people are so frightened to put stuff on now, which is a shame really. And good on Yorkshire to do what they did when they did it.
Yeah, you were telling me about the motor complaint moment in an episode.
Yeah, I mean, the people that complained didn't really understand it was ironic.
Yeah.
That we were laughing at Rik, we weren't laughing at what he did. And there was one occasion where, I don't know, there was a Falklands beggar who'd lost his leg, and he was outside this hotel, and Rik gets out of this huge car, and he says, oh, money for the Falklands? And Rik says, yes, I made a huge amount, thank you very much, whacks his crutch, and he falls to the ground. And that was a huge complaint, because people didn't understand that the humour was the fact that Rik was the culprit. It wasn't the action. It was really sad. But there you go. You know, most people understood what's going on.
Was it strange to move on after such a successful show?
Sorry?
Was it difficult to move on after such a successful show? You've been playing it for years?
I did tend to... casting directors did tend to put me up for parts called Piers an awful lot. Because they obviously, you know, said, oh yeah, Michael Troughton can play that because it's called Piers. You know? So I played quite a few of those characters called Piers. No, I didn't. I think it's the same as my dad. He'd done such a large body of work before he did Doctor Who. You know, he was able to carry on in the same way that I'd done quite a large amount of work before I did a role that, you know, you could have been typecast for, but luckily I wasn't, and castings carry on after that. So it wasn't too bad.
Just remind everyone the microphone's there. If anyone wants to come up and ask any questions, please do. One which I want to ask
Don't all
you.
rush.
Something I want to ask you about. I think most people here hear you talk about this one, but Woof, the TV show. Do you remember?
Oh, Woof.
The boy who turned into a dog.
Yeah, I mean, as you do.
It ran for years.
It ran, I think it was 10 series that kids thing did. Yes, I played the dad of the boy who turned into a dog. And amazingly, he never noticed anything, which is quite extraordinary, really. Yes, who played the teacher? Quite a famous lady. Who was the teacher lady?
Anyone help me out? No.
No. Okay. We'll leave that one there.
I have to get in. Getting back onto Doctor Who for a bit, talking about Last Christmas, of course. Fantastic Christmas special. And I'd actually found, I don't know if you're in any scenes together, but you've already been in High Specs with Peter Capaldi. Did you have any scenes with him previously?
Yeah, I mean, I've done quite a lot with Peter, actually. We've been on stage together. We were mates before I met him on Doctor Who again. As you say, I did that series with him, which was about tax and land owning and dodgy dealings and things. I remember being arrested by the police and my children screaming as I was carrying out, I think. But anyway, yeah, Peter, as I said before, he I think, is such a gentleman. He is such a lovely man. Brilliant actor. And again, you know, he'd done a body of work before. He did Doctor Who, so he wasn't going to get typecast. And, you know, you see him doing loads of stuff afterwards, which is wonderful, it really is. But the big thing about Peter on the set, when I was working on the Christmas thing up in Cardiff, every time I was on the set, you know, in between the scenes, it would be, so Michael, tell me, what it was like being on the Web of Fear set? I mean, it must have been amazing. And he was like a 2-year-old. He just basically, he's such a geek Doctor Who fan, that in the end, I just say, I'll tell you what, Peter, let's sit down, have a cup of tea, and I'll tell you all about it. Because he just loved Doctor Who, and when he got the role, you know, I talked to it, and I said, this is the perfect thing for you. It really is, because well, he was on Blue Peter as a Doctor Who fan when he was what, 12 was it? I don't know.
He was head of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society.
Yeah, incredible. But he's still a fan, loves it.
Yeah, I think that love really shows throughout his work on the show and his interactions with the fans.
Sure,
Like.
And it was the first return to an older type of Doctor, which is good because you know you've got to have this variation all the time. I think they've done really well with different Doctors, and they're all great actors as well. They're really good actors.
How do you feel being on a modern Doctor Who set after being, as you say, on the Web of Fear set and
you know,
back there in the day?
I honestly thought I was going to walk into a room, a green screen room, you know what I mean by that? So, you know, for computer animation. But actually, when I walked onto the set, it was real. You know, so that was Mr. Michael Troughton. Did I lie? What a bon vivant, what a storyteller, what a gentleman. And I think there is something about an actor who, you know, has had such a long tail of a career. They've got not only such wonderful stories to tell, but I feel like after you've been doing it for a while, you're less bothered about worrying about saying stuff on stage, and like you can just have fun with it. And that's the experience which I had with Michael. It was great over the whole weekend. He was they do a version of Just a Minute, the old radio show. At the weekend at which he was on, and he gave a little bit. The only thing I was kicking myself that I didn't ask him to do was a little bit of Pierce's voice from the new Statesman, but he did it in Just a Minute, and it was just absolutely glorious. So sorry you missed out on that, but
all the more reason to go to sci-fiweekender.com and book up the Sci-Fi Weekender 16, which will be coming to you next year. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to Michael Troughton for allowing us to share this interview, and to the good folks at Sci-Fi Weekender. I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show in a world where you can be truly anything. Live like you've got two hearts, and please be kind.